Flowermound, I work with group. I do a lot of trauma-focused therapy, working with adults and couples, and whatever they'd like to work on. So substance use disorder, couple stuff, but mostly trauma-based stuff. So really enjoy that. I was actually working with treatment centers. My first job out of school. Actually, I was still in school. Actually, Paula helped me get years ago. So it's really cool that when you network with your professors, they can be a big asset for you. So she got my first job, and I had thought I was just going to work with substance use disorder for forever, but I learned really quick that I have far more interest in trauma than I did substance use disorder. So that's just a little bit about my background. So today we're going to talk about utilizing psychedelics as a pathway to recovery. That's kind of shocking for people that aren't really kind of in the know and knowing what's going on with all that, or really traditional abstinence-based folks. So hopefully today I can give you a little bit of insight, maybe pique your interest, or maybe offend you in some way, because that happens too. So, but hopefully not. Let's get to my other slide here. So today's presentation will be an introduction to the definition of recovery, what recovery pathways are, and examples of various recovery pathways. We're going to also highlight the use of psychedelics as a recovery pathway for those experiencing challenges for mental health and substance use disorders, being treated under the supervision of doctors and trained professionals and spiritual guides or teachers. So not just out doing shrooms willy-nilly on a Saturday. So tried it, you know, wasn't all that bad. So here's my disclaimer on those types of things. So this presentation explores medicines that are illegal here and in some states or countries, and legal in others. So I recommend knowing your local laws regarding the possession or use of these medicines. Be cautious, they're not for everybody. And the presenter assumes no responsibility or liability for any errors or choices you make after you learn about some of these things. And the views expressed in this presentation are just mine and do not reflect the views of anybody I work for or work with or University of North Texas. The information I will cover in this presentation is solely for educational purposes and to pique your interest. And I don't suggest or condone the sale or use of anything illegal. We're trying to keep people out of jail or rehab and not put them back in. So, all right. And if you have any questions along the way, kind of hold on to them till the end. If you just can't wait, throw up your hand. I'm pretty casual, I'll call on you. All right. And also we're celebrating National Recovery Month in September. Many people will say you're in recovery, you know, kudos to you, right on. I'm also a person in long-term recovery as well. And as you'll figure out, mine is very non-traditional based on what I advocate for. So the definition of recovery. Anybody want to jump in and say like what recovery means to them? You don't even have to be in recovery, just like you can hear. Oh, I'm in recovery, what's that mean? So
I think we can reasonably assume something bad has happened that you are recovering from.
okay.
Experience.
You've had some experiences you got to recover from. Absolutely. I like that. It's very broad. You know, I've heard people say we're all kind of in recovery from something. I tend to subscribe to that myself. But whether or not you touch drugs or alcohol or not, right? Anybody else? Want to throw anything out there? Okay. All right. So I like this definition of recovery, right? It's very broad, like this gentleman was talking about. It's not really specific to substance use disorder or mental health disorder. It just says the substance, well, it's from the SAMHSA, if you're not familiar with that, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, which is a lot of really smart people, and they come up with a really lot of cool information. So the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Information defines recovery as a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. According to that, aren't we all in recovery in some way? Right? Don't we all want to live and strive to our full potential? Don't we want to change? Aren't we always all evolving? So I really like this definition of recovery because it's not limited. You notice two words are not in there. One, sobriety, the other, abstinence. So it doesn't require you to be sober or abstinent to be in recovery. Misnomer, it's what I call a recovery myth, okay? This is what some people get mad at me sometimes. So what's a recovery pathway? Anybody want to take a stab at it? Absolutely. There's different ways to recovery, different modalities. Well put. So I like this definition. Again, I use Shamsha. It says, recovery pathways are highly personalized. They may include professional clinical treatment, use of medications, support from families or in schools. They could be faith-based. They could be peer support, and then even other supports or other approaches. And you don't have to just choose one. That's the cool thing about it. The recovery is nonlinear, and it's characterized by continual growth and improved functioning that may involve setbacks. You might have heard this before in your classes, that relapse is a part of recovery, right? Because even, when we're characterizing or when we're assessing for substance use disorder, generally it's, have you tried to stop and couldn't? So if you tried to stop and couldn't, kind of consider the lapse or relapse, whatever you want to characterize it as. So it is part of recovery, right? It's not necessarily, a reason to go out and use and go, this is part of my recovery. But you know what I'm saying? It's going to happen. So research supports the idea that the more recovery pathways you utilize, it increases your chances of success in long-term recovery. And you define that success. Not a book, not a recovery pathway, not your sponsor, not anybody else. You define what your success looks like. It's your recovery, after all, right? And this is from not only substance use disorders, but mental health disorders. Recovery pathways genuinely follow into one of these three categories, as you see: clinical, non-clinical, or self-managed. Okay. So examples of recovery pathways. We've all heard of 12-step recovery. That's been around since the late 30s. Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, you name it, there's an anonymous. Cocaine Anonymous, Meth Anonymous, Sex Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous. There's so many great communities out there that you can connect with that use 12 steps, right? Been around forever. And then there are recovery pathways utilizing Buddhist principles. My chosen pathway, recovery Dharma. There's also refuge recovery, which is very similar. There's secular pathways to recovery, meaning they don't use any sort of faith-based, right? So they have smart recovery, which is self-management, recovery training, life ring secular. And then there's faith-based or Christ-centered recovery, like Celebrate Recovery. So if you're Christian and you're struggling with addiction, Celebrate Recovery is all over the place, right? Then there's a sober active community called the Phoenix. Every one of these things that I mentioned here have websites, right? So the Phoenix has an app. You go on your phone, type in Phoenix Sober Active Community. They have DFW, and they have all over Texas. It's based out of Denton. It's a nonprofit organization, and you can do free activities every single day of the week. It costs you nothing. All they ask is that you've been abstinent 2 days. Probably so you don't stroke out if you're doing CrossFit or something. So it's a really great community, and they don't ever ask you any questions. You don't have to go there and make any disclosures. You're there to do CrossFit or boxing or kayaking, whatever. It's the coolest thing, I think, to ever hit the recovery scene. And then they have YPR, which is Youth and Young Adult Focused Recovery. So YPR is a very active online community, so they have all sorts of cool things. They have bilingual stuff. They have stuff for LGBTQIA. You name it, it's really cool. So there's some different things to check out. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to share some of this with you is because if I just come in here talking about psychedelics as a recovery pathway, you're not sure what recovery means or recovery pathways are, we're kind of getting ahead of the game, aren't we? So I want to kind of give you a little backstory on that. Now I have to remember to breathe. I still get nervous doing these things, but it's all good. So next thing, oh, before I get to that, so this morning or this afternoon, right before I got here, I'm like, oh my gosh, how can I not talk about recovery? I didn't make a harm reduction slide. So I made myself some little notes to cover some harm reduction. Anybody know what harm reduction is? Anybody? Reducing harm? Absolutely. Nailed it. Absolutely. One second. No, it's not. So yeah, we have things like needle exchanges, safe injection sites, right? I had a friend tell me he got an abscess from shooting up heroin, and it cost the taxpayers $1 million. And if he would have been able to exchange his dirty needles for clean needles, which cost less than a nickel, it would have saved the taxpayers $1 million. And that's just one guy with one abscess, right? And now he's doing amazing. Name's Richard Bradshaw. He goes all over the place talking about harm reduction. Isn't that crazy? We want to save $1 million, not to mention save this young man's life, right? So here's my harm reduction spiel. So I was actually introduced to harm reduction here at the University of North Texas by Amy Trail and Paula Garland here. I had never heard of it. I was raised around 12-step recovery from my grandma. I didn't know that you could support people who are actively using drugs and that they could actually consider themselves in recovery because they're working on changing themselves. And I'm like, I thought it was a little crazy at first because I was taught completely the opposite. And once I learned that we're trying to reduce harm to the community, to the individual, right? I kind of started getting on board with it. And then the more I learned about harm reduction, the more I fell in love with it. And to me, you know, and I get emotional when I talk about this, to me, how it's characterized, if somebody comes in off the street every week or every few days, and we can give them food and give them a shower and give them a set of clean clothes and give them some medicine and get clean needles and do all that, and they go back out in the community, we don't razz them, we just offer them help. They're going to come back. And they're going to know that when they come and see me, or they come and see somebody I work with, we're just going to love them and care about them and try to give them whatever they need that day. We're not going to solve their problem if we can make their life a little better that day. And eventually, hopefully, when that window of opportunity comes and they decide, I'm ready for some help, who do you think they're going to go to, right? Are they going to come to people like Dusty over at LifePath or friends over at TCC or here at Denton County MHMR, because they know they didn't judge me, they didn't shame me. They tried to make my life as best as they could that day or that week. And so I know who to ask for help because I know they're going to give it. That to me encapsulates harm reduction. So it's my TED Talk. I get a little fired up about it. So another thing I wanted to mention, that if you don't know already, there's a collegiate recovery program here at UNT, and that's how I got introduced to all of these things I didn't know about before, as well as the curriculum. And there was Eagle Peer Recovery as well. So shout out to Paula and the rest of the crew. So recovery can begin before you quit and doesn't require abstinence, although highly recommended, right? Once you've decided to change, then you can decide you're in recovery. It's your decision. So then you can take some action. That's about all I had on the harm reduction part, but just so you know, there's needle exchanges, safe kits for IV users, safe injection sites, and don't forget Narcan. If you need some Narcan, reach out to me, I'll get you some Narcan. Free of charge, you know, if I don't have any, I'll get it, we'll figure it out. I don't care if we gotta meet you in a parking lot somewhere, okay? There's too much of it floating around, it's not gonna save any life sitting in my closet or anybody else's closet, okay? So moving right along to the fun stuff. Psychedelics as a recovery pathway. Psychedelics in recovery is a fellowship of people in 12-step recovery who also have an interest in psychedelics or plant medicine as an aid to recovery, right? That's kind of odd, right? Does anybody think that's weird? Anybody? Like people that are like, oh, he's sober, but he's doing psychedelics. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to cover that in a second. Bill Wilson has characterized the belladonna experience when he Dr. Silkworth administered him 3 days in high doses of hallucinogens, and that's when he had a spiritual awakening. And then he chased that spiritual awakening a long time, even writing letters to Timothy Leary and Carl Jung. I was going to mention that later, so I like that. I like where you hit that. So it's kind of a new thing, right? So they have psychedelics in recovery here in Dallas, which I have a slide on later. There's a big psychedelics in recovery in Austin, Texas, of course, because they always seem to have the cool recovery stuff before everybody else. And so I highly recommend you guys check that out if you're interested, even if you're just curious, right? So even if you follow an abstinence-based recovery, which obviously I highly recommend, you might be assisting other people that aren't really ready to do abstinence yet, especially if you're a professional or budding professional, maybe working in a treatment center as a tech, or you're sponsoring somebody or peer support. So it's just good to be in the know. And so you can check out the website there, psychedelicsinrecovery.org. And so now to therapeutic psychedelics, right? Unless you've been internet free, you probably heard that psychedelics for healing is the next big thing in medicine. It's very popular, has been, especially for people who have the means to travel the world and go to psychedelic retreats. So Wall Street and big pharma and hedge fund investors are scrambling to buy up everything that they can to get ahead of what's in the next generation of treatments for addiction and mental health. So this stuff is already happening. It's just a matter of it coming out. We already have Colorado, of course, has legalized psychedelics, Oregon. We have ketamine that's already legal in probably 48 states, right? So Australia, as a country, legalized psychedelics. They're the first country to legalize that. So this is just coming down the road. MDMA will probably be federally legal here in the next couple of years. They're on their last trials that are being utilized in research through MAPS. So it's a big thing and it's coming our way. And so as you get into the research, because it's really always about the research, right? We're gonna have all these people advocating for it, but we want to see the numbers. We want to see who it's helping, how it's helping, and how we're measuring harm. Because if the harm is too great, obviously you got to kind of weigh out the cost and benefits for that, right? So I like this part because so celebrities who are utilizing psychedelics for treatment, and they're pretty excited to talk about it and advocate for it. I mean, if you have TikTok or you listen to podcasts or any social media, really, once you start to look into some of these, psychedelic sites and mental health sites, there's celebrities all over talking about it. Aaron Rodgers is a big advocate for ayahuasca. Will Smith, ayahuasca. We got Megan Fox, Lindsay Lohan, Sting, Miley Cyrus, Terrence Howard, Michelle Rodriguez, Ron White. So you see the up there, Jim Carrey, Seth Rogen, Mike Tyson is like a changed man because of a lot of this stuff, Iron Mike kind of went off the rails there for a long time, didn't he? And that is more like Magic Mushroom Mike. So Elon Musk, of course, and Prince Harry, Diplo, Lamar Odom. Lamar Odom kind of had a really bad time. So it's really helpful for a lot of these celebrities. And as our culture is so influenced by that, sometimes people take a lot of stock in if it's advocated by celebrities. But I just find it interesting. So let's see what everybody's buzzing about. See what I did there? Here are some of the main plants and compounds being utilized in research over the globe. And so when I say plants versus compounds, right, a lot of people are plant medicine advocates, right? But things like ketamine, that's a compound, right? That's made in the lab. But then sometimes we take plant medicines and we synthesize them into compounds. For instance, peyote, right? There was a big agreement that we wouldn't use peyote because it was culturally inappropriate to do so, right? But some pharmaceutical company decided to go ahead and synthesize that anyway into a pill. So things that can grow plant-based are not being synthesized and compounded into pill form. And for anybody who's into like chemistry and laboratory stuff, if I mess that up, I apologize. I'm just a therapist. So of course, one of the most popular things that's been around and being researched is psilocybin. If I didn't mention this before, at any given time, there's at least 300 universities or labs or companies that are doing this research actively. There's actually, I think her name, I don't want to screw up her name. She's a psychiatrist here in Plano, and she's doing psilocybin trials. I went to a talk she did on Gen Z about 2 weeks ago, and she's like, yeah, we're waiting on our psilocybin. It's in process. It's waiting in customs. So I was like, that's pretty cool, you know, that we're actually be having these trials here in this area. So I have to reconnect with her because that was pretty fascinating. They're going to be doing duplicating, you know, as far as what they're going to be working on is treatment-resistant depression, because that's one of the major deals here, right? Is depression, anxiety, and PTSD, right? Some of the more common issues facing us as a society. So you're going to see a lot of research on those. LinkedIn has some amazing stuff. If you really want to know about research utilizing psychedelics, go to LinkedIn, just type in some stuff and start following, and you'll really get some really great information. All right, ayahuasca. Everybody heard of ayahuasca before? So yeah, ayahuasca, it's a South American psychoactive brew, traditionally used in indigenous cultures and healers to the Amazon basin. What's interesting about ayahuasca is the plant that's used, you can't ingest it. So it won't metabolize without adding some other stuff to it, and that's where they get this brew, and then your body can metabolize it. And the active ingredient in there, the psychoactive part, is DMT, which is in every living thing, plants and animals. They say that you release DMT when you pass away. So there's a really good documentary called The Spirit Molecule. If you ever heard of that on Netflix, check it out. Any questions on any of these things so far? About psilocybin, about ayahuasca? All right, so psilocybin, of course, is illegal still in most states. So if it's anything you want to dabble with, you know, you'd want to go to those states. Oregon has already set up the therapeutic protocols for psilocybin treatment. You do integration, you get a room, pre-integration, post-integration. What psychedelic integration is we're basically doing some intentional work with the psychedelics, and that's the whole point here. That's how it differs from just going out and taking some shrooms at the lake, right? You're going to be with a clinical psychiatrist or psychologist or licensed therapist, or depending on what the organization has to offer. And so you're going to have somebody doing integration work. Sometimes they're just trained integrationists, and you're going to have like mantras. You're going to have your intentionality behind it. What do you want to work on during this experience? And you're going to have the experience, right? And that's going to vary depending on what's going on there. And then afterwards, you're going to do some processing, right? What did I take away from that? And then, later on, whether it's a week or a month, you're going to come back and keep processing that. And that's really important to do because a lot of connections are made. A lot of answers to questions you have can be explored during these experiences. So MDMA, right? Formerly ecstasy, right? That was a drug that was actually kind of developed for therapeutic use. It kind of leaked into the streets, things got out of hand, and they kind of shut that down. Now, MAPS has taken over the research again, and we're going to get really close. We are very close to being able to access that here in the United States again. And it was really, really helpful for couples therapy and for trauma. And that's going to be the big focus on it to help people with post-traumatic stress disorder. So if you go to MAPS website, maps.org, you can look up the efficacy, the research, all of these things about MDMA, which will kind of blow your mind because there was so many myths about MDMA when it was a street drug, and they kind of clear some of those up. And just like anything else, you take fentanyl, for instance, it's been around a very long time, and if it wasn't for fentanyl, we wouldn't be able to have the kind of surgeries that we have. So it's not that some of these chemicals are bad, it's just how they're being used and how they're being exploited and how they're being flooded into the streets. So we'll see what happens with the MDMA, but it should be quite a change in how we see and do therapy as clinicians, right? So ketamine, formerly Special K, or still Special K, depending on where you're buying it from. It's a club drug. It's still very popular. It's also a veterinary medicine, and it's a well-regarded anesthetic. So if you've ever had any surgery, you might have had ketamine before. There's a clinic that I work with here called NeuroGlow. They have a clinic in Flower Mound and McKinney. I was a patient there, and I went through their 6-session protocol for post-traumatic stress disorder, and it was a life changer for me. The intravenous ketamine is great. You go in, they hook you up, you're monitored by a nurse practitioner. They monitor your heart rate, your blood pressure. It's a very safe environment. You do integration, and it's phenomenal. It's good for treatment-resistant depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. Have any veterans in the room? Yeah, it's really big for veterans. And what's good about the ketamine, aside from its researched efficacy and it's legal, is it's accessible here to you guys, you know, that if you're experiencing some of this stuff. It's very safe, and you know, I only recommend doing that in a clinic when you're supervised. They have stuff where you can get it over the internet, being prescribed to you. I don't really advocate for that because I don't believe it's that safe. And it's, again, this is just my opinion. So I don't know what your environments look like. I don't know how stable your mental health is. And then you introduce a hallucinogen and you're not in a controlled environment. A lot of variables there. So I recommend if you're going to explore this kind of pathway to healing that you do it in a clinic with trained folks. Any questions on that so far? How am I doing on time, Paula? Okay, should do just fine on that. And so then ibogaine or iboga is a psychedelic stimulant made from African bark, right? This has been said to be the closest thing that we have that can kind of eradicate opioid use disorder. Of course, it's one of the most promising medicines, and of course it's illegal here, right? But fortunately, we're close neighbors with Mexico. I referred a couple of clients to treatment centers down in Mexico that utilize ibogaine for opioid use disorder. One of my clients went down there, and it was a big risk for her. She was not somebody that took a lot of risks, except with her body when it comes to use, but she went down there and she's been abstinent ever since. I had another friend who what the treatment community might call a chronic relapser, you know, in and out of sober homes, in and out of treatment centers, living in her car, engaging in all sorts of stuff from drug sales to sex work. She was had a very difficult struggle with her addictions. And she went to the treatment center in Mexico, and she has been clean and sober ever since, and living out in LA, living her best life. So I know 2 people personally, but it's some really intense stuff. Ibogaine is really intense. It's interesting too, because the cost of a treatment center there is $10,000 for the month, as opposed to here, it's usually $30,000 a month. So you're actually, it's cheaper down there, and you can have access to this medicine that you can't have here in the United States. So if people with really severe opioid use disorder, you know, fentanyl addiction, IV heroin use, if this can't seem to kick it, this might be something to look into if you know somebody like that. So I think it's very promising. I do want to say kind of another disclaimer on this, if I didn't mention it before. Psychedelics can be very triggering to people with severe mental health. So if you have a history of schizophrenia, bipolar disorder with illusions and things like that, it might not be the thing for you. So you really want to kind of get checked out with your psychiatrist before you explore any of these things. And when you go, please make full disclosures about anything you've experienced, right? It's just like high potency THC. Some of these things can have a really adverse effect. And if you're in here because you want to go on this journey of healing and you're working to, overcome addiction, overcome your struggles with mental health, the last thing you need to do is trigger schizophrenia, right? So I just wanted to let y'all know that if I hadn't already mentioned it. So many things floating around in my brain. I'm trying to cover them all today. This is kind of an interesting one. Anybody ever heard of smoking the frog venom? Oh, yeah, it sounds weird, doesn't it? Well, it is weird. Yeah, so the venom of the Sonorian desert toad, literally toad secretion, is traditionally smoked, and research shows it improves symptoms of anxiety and depression, which is another ingredient that has DMT, right? So we had DMT in the ayahuasca, we have DMT in the bufo, right? So in psychedelic communities, bufo ceremonies are a very big thing, right? It's pretty popular. So I just think it's great. And that's actually the toad there, the cute little guy. They actually have these toads that are here in America too. And I forget what state, when I was doing some research last night, you can have up to 10. Right, that's fast, right? Yeah, the game warden will come after you if you get more than 10 toads. 10 toad limit. So some of this stuff is really interesting. Like I said, today is just really meant to spark your interest if you have some curiosity about it, because there's just an overwhelming amount of information there once you start to peel back the layers here. And even if you're not interested in just for yourself, just kind of knowing, especially if you're going to addiction work or therapy, very beneficial to know. So of course, old school LSD, right? When I was growing up, we called it Uncle Sid, which has been synthesized from a fungus that grows on wheat, right? That was kind of a cool story about Albert Hoffman. He was working with this compound, we're back in 1958, and he got a bunch of it on his hands. He didn't think too much about it, and he got on his bicycle to ride home, and next thing you know, it hit him. And so that's celebrated as Bicycle Day every year. Albert Hoffman actually writes about his experience riding his bicycle on that day. It's pretty interesting. You get a chance to read about it. But yeah, it's actually a celebrated day. So when LSD came out, it was actually successfully used to treat alcoholism in the 50s and 60s. But because of the culture back then and the stigma around drugs and drug use and hippies and social movements, they shut that down, right? So I would say this, can you imagine where we would be if the research on LSD and MDMA and psilocybin wasn't just completely shut down? We might have a completely different society in regards to mental health treatment and addiction treatment. We might even have eradicated some things. Who knows? Yes, sir.
That's Burrows. Good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
I guess I think it was most of the 70s, the war on drugs, where they just cut all of the tubes of stuff. And we're finally picking back up where we left off.
Pretty much.
And in between that time, it's hard not to be upset with the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, I'm not blaming them for everything, but we have, I think that there's been a lot of, like addiction and opioid use disorder has really been sparked because of, I think, the absence of these drugs. I've seen a lot of it with PTSD, with veterans, and it saved people's lives. I mean, it's psilocybin, I think, is one of the most incredible chemicals. The more I read about it, the more it blows my mind how it changes the way you're thinking, your negative feedback loops in your brain. And that's something that I've noticed personally, that might have the negative memories of time. I mean, it's completely changed my brain. So in a positive way. But
yeah, well said. Well said. And yeah, we've noticed this in a lot of different industries. The bigger industries will kind of shut down things as they come. But now that they're just the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, now they're getting on board because they have to, and so we'll see how it all turns out. Hopefully we will have access to these things. What I saw in Oregon is already they take what would be $30 worth of psilocybin and they've turned it into a $2,000 experience that insurance doesn't cover. So we're already seeing kind of the exploitation once business gets a hold of it. So who will be able to access this? And I think that's a good segue to talking about veterans down here as well. So I wanted to mention that before we run out of time. So veterans who are assisted with psychedelics, right? We have people up in Washington right now because as we know, people with addiction and PTSD are the biggest population these could help, and especially our veterans, which our veterans are way over medicated. The suicide rate is extremely high. So like Marcus Capone and his wife Amber are working up there in DC. It's a bipartisan project to try to get these medicines legalized and be covered by the VA, so we can cut down on the substance use disorder and suicide rate. So hopefully with them working, with other veteran organizations working, we can see some relief there. I wanted to mention them too, because you can just Google Marcus Capone. Him and his wife have a podcast. He's the CEO of Terra Mind, and they have a nonprofit called vetsolutions.org where they raise money to get veterans. And if they have to send them to Costa Rica or to Mexico, wherever it's legal to get these ladies and gentlemen help for their post-traumatic stress disorder, they will get them there. So it's a really cool nonprofit. So I wanted to mention that because we got to take care of our veterans, All right. And then, so various disorders being treated with psychedelics somewhere on the planet. So I didn't match up the psychedelic to what it's generally treated for, because that was a lot of work, and there's still ongoing research, right? We have stuff for like postpartum depression, I listed them there: post-traumatic stress disorder, psychosomatic disease, postpartum depression, nicotine use disorder, opioid use disorder, alcohol use disorder, treatment-resistant depression, and anxiety disorders. And one of the cooler ones, people who are in like 4th stage of the cancer, people who are terminally ill from various things, are utilizing psychedelics, mushrooms, ayahuasca, and they get some peace. They're not so scared about what's coming. They're reporting, I'm not afraid to die anymore. I mean, how incredible is that? If it's your wife or your child or your grandma, and they know they're going to die soon because of whatever they're experiencing, all of a sudden they're at peace with it. I mean, I think we all want that. I think a lot of us fear death, and to have some sort of peace before you're going on to the next level, whatever you believe that is a pretty incredible thing to conceptualize, that there's actually something that can help out with that, So I wanted to plug this one too. It's a local psychedelic recovery community that's here in Dallas. It's at the CSA or CSL, which is Center for Spiritual Healing. It's still going on. I just checked in with the gentleman that runs this this morning. So if you're curious, take a snapshot of that, write it down. They also have some other really cool things going on at csldallas.org. It's really kind of a holistic, spiritual, denominational community. Good hippy dippy stuff is what I like. And then, of course, I started this Facebook community a little over a year ago. It's called Rehumanate. I made up that word. It's rejuvenating humans through psychedelic integration, because I also do psychedelic integration in my practice. And so people were real curious about this when I was sharing my story with ketamine and other things. And I said, well, just jump onto this Facebook group, whether you're professional, whether you're a lay person, a student, whoever, if you're just interested, jump on there, and you're welcome to, post research and articles. So it's a very healthy kind of group to share information and experiences with these compounds and plant medicines. So it's a private group, so I'm the one to send send a request to join if you're curious. Again, that's Rehumanate on Facebook. And so I love this quote here because you brought up Bill W. earlier, and before I have to get off, I wanted to bring that up because, me having a history with 12-step recovery, a lot of my friends in 12-step recovery, a lot of my treatment friends, big advocates for 12-step recovery. We have a lot of conversations about harm reduction and psychedelics. A lot of people who practice abstinence and 12-step recovery, like, oh yeah, I've been abstinent a long time, but I might do some mushrooms if it was the right situation. And I think a lot of that has to do with the influence that Bill Wilson has within 12 steps, of course, because he's the founder, but also with his interest and participation in psychedelics. So this is a quote from him when he was having his, I think, what do you call it here? His white light experience. In the mind's eye, there was a mountain. I stood upon its summit where a great wind blew, a wind not of air, but of spirit. In great, clean strength, it blew right through me. Then came the blazing thought, you are a free man. Pretty profound. I think that was on his third day of treatment from Dr. Silkworth when he was doing the belladonna treatment. And belladonna is also a psychedelic. I'd really never heard of it before reading up on that. And I always got to throw in a dad joke. I love that one. So if you can't see this, says, why is the mushroom always invited to parties? He's a fun guy. And then this letter, I thought would be interesting to include. You brought this up earlier. This is a letter from Bill Wilson to Timothy Leary. Right? Timothy Leary, world famous, I believe he was a psychiatrist, wasn't he? Yeah, I believe he was. And yeah, he was one of the big pioneers of the LSD movement. If you read right here, it says a number of AAs here in New York have been a part of the development of the LSD possibilities, right? So they were pretty on board with it. And I think that's really interesting too, that even in this very strong, very traditional, very successful, powerful abstinence 12-step movement, that even then and even now, that they're open to the possibilities of psychedelics and recovery. So thanks for letting me share some information with you today. I'm all over social media. If you have any other questions, I didn't feel comfortable answering them today. Hopefully nothing you found too triggering or offensive. But I'm always interested in connecting in the community. Like I said, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on all the things. And if you're ever interested in Recovery Dharma, I started the Recovery Dharma group in Plano, and then meet on Wednesdays. There's Recovery Dharma Dallas, Recovery Dharma Plano, both Facebook pages, and they have all the information there. If you're ever interested in coming to check it out or attending. Any questions before I conclude? All right. Well, thanks again for sharing some time with me.
There were comments about the code was done. And we'll take about 5-10 minutes break so I can get Kira set up, and what if y'all need to move around, walk around, whatever you'd like to do. If you'd like to chat with Dusky. Yes, please. You missed the old place you were working? You missed the place.
Yeah, I missed my coworkers. I missed their recovery coaches, and that's my coworker on Oba. That's been
So you're like,
I'm not director, was super awesome. But all of you know, like I still keep in touch with them. I don't miss the job.
that's true. Are you still out in this area?
Yeah, so I would live off from this on the road stuff.
Okay, well, good.
Daughters next door, TWU.
How's she liking it?
She loves it. She loves it. She's in the tall building now.
Is she living there?
Mhm.
Does she live there? Awesome.
Yeah, she just made president's list. She's on a full scholarship.
That's amazing. How are you doing with that, with her not being at home?
Well, yeah.
Oh, are you?
So
I'm
she puts her
struggling.
down the road. So she comes in all the, she comes in the weekend.
I'm
So she's
struggling with
getting that
Caleb
college
being gone.
experience.
Yeah, I'm glad that Caleb waited till now to go because, well, COVID. And then I just think he's better prepared now than he was then.
Yeah, she tried to go out to New York and that didn't work out. He said, "Don't do that." New York. And it was the best.
There's a huge difference between 18 and 22. And it's just, he's a different person. And in just the time, he's only been gone 6 weeks. I saw him this weekend. He's already like matured. Just that getting up and
It's so funny.
I enjoy. I mean, he told his fiance the other day, she told me, like, he said, I just realized, like, whatever I do with stuff, living on my own, it just stays there. Like used to, like clothes would get washed, things would get picked. I was like, huh.
It's funny too, we go out camping and like, we were out camping and, my daughter and the son came up and then my girlfriend and I sat down at the campfire and we're like cracking up in a beer and like grown kids.
People used to tell me, people who enjoyed their grown kids used to tell me, just wait till they're adults. It's so neat to have a relationship with, and I thought, I can't imagine that because I loved him being a kid. I just loved being a mom, but it is kind of cool.
Yeah, my son is amazing. He's got like all the cool parts of me without like the rowdiness.
Really?
Yeah.
Does he still like music?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's still doing it. It's all on Spotify.
Oh, yeah, that's really neat.
Many people show up online.
Yeah, we had about 8 or 9, and I was so excited. Lizandri, who's on there, she was one of our students way back when, and 10 years ago, she reminded me, she started the first recovery symposium or recovery conference. She put it all together and we had it at a church not far from here. We didn't even have a union back then, or we had one, but it wasn't like this one that has meeting spaces and stuff. And she just reminded me that it was 10 years ago that happened. And I was like, she was glad to see that we're still doing it. I'm like, well, it's the first time we've had anything like this since COVID. I was trying to tell him that we don't even have EPR anymore. Caleb kept it registered every year he was in school, but he's not here anymore, so he couldn't. So 2 students have said they want to help get it started again.
I was going to ask about the recovery conference, and I get to meet Justin first and so, and what was that speaker you had?
The motivational speaker,
Yeah.
the football player. Why don't I remember? Yeah. Why don't I remember his name? His brother was a basketball
Yeah,
coach.
then, no review on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pictures pop up on Facebook.
Yeah, that's just what we used to have. I mean, I was telling him about having Justin Furstenfeld here, and it cost us $10,000. We had $10,000. We were the biggest student org on campus. I mean, it's just to now we don't have it. It breaks my heart. But students this semester seem to be ready to start getting. We used to have like weekly pizza meetings where we just hung out during lunch. But when they moved to CRP, they moved it where now it's in student affairs. So they're not even in our building and they're not part of our program. That changed a lot. Because we don't really even know what's going on over there unless we intentionally try to find out. And Michael Counsel's working for him. He's the assistant over there.
I do that from LinkedIn and stuff.
I miss, I mean, I miss it too. I mean, I know it was a huge benefit for the students, but I just miss being around the students all the time. I really enjoyed getting to know them in a different way.
What are you gonna post the things up on the YouTube?
I will do it as soon as I, let me, As soon as it stops, it starts recording. I mean, it's,
I have to go after the appointment out in Plano, but I'm checking the state, but I'm gonna check it on the YouTube.
Okay,
Yeah.
oh, let me put this.
I'm pretty sure you should be on the up and up in this area, so
Uh,
I'm just gonna
On
say.
its own? Yeah, I hope
you're-
so.
I hope you're okay.
You never know how it's learning the tricks.
I do too.
This
I mean,
is pretty, well, so this was created originally for, I mean, for Netflix, really, but, something basic.
Yeah, okay, good.
I don't think people get enough of it anymore, and it's just like, don't yell.
Right.
Right, and then I stop it. You take over a program and you're like, okay, not what we're doing.
Let
let me make sure that that's what it looks like.
I came last month from managing programs and I'm just a therapist in a program. I don't have really any responsibility. It's great. I do kind of miss a little bit of it, but not a lot.
Here's your
Thanks, Lisa.
clicker to advance them. Bye.
We did the kids.
My pleasure.
Tell your kids hello.
Does anybody need anything, or have any questions or anything before we move on to the next speaker? I'm so excited to have Kara here. I was, when we emailed, her because you worked with her. Since she come, when I saw her name, I was like, oh my God, I've been her forever because of our professional association that I talk about all the time. That's how I met her, and probably 75% of the other professionals that I know in the field. But this remarkable woman, I'm gonna let her tell you about her. About your daughter, because she's gotta be grown by now. But she's actually one now. Yeah, she's bigger than over teeth. Yeah. And mine's not even a home anymore. Yeah, it's so hard to do. Yeah. So anyway, all of that. It's neat that our profession is really big, but it's small because if you start going to those professional associations and functions, you'll know everyone. And that way, like Dusty said, like I got him that job. I referred him to the job. I didn't get him the job. But when you know people in the field, that is how you get a job. I'm not kidding. I haven't applied for a job in like 15 years. People just call you up. Yep. Say, we're looking for people. Are you interested, or do you know someone who is? So start networking, and I'm gonna give the rest of the time over so you can just have whatever, and we're here till 4:02. Oh, I left my notes. An hour. I didn't take my notes with me. Yes, so my name is Kira Casimir. I am the Adult Women's Services Director at Nexus Recovery. I'll tell you a little bit about Nexus in a minute. I did meet Paula back when I was a student, back when I was at Eastfield. When I originally started this, I was like, I'm just gonna go do these 2 years and I'm just gonna be a LCDC and I'm good, right? I actually got involved in a lot of organizations at the school and started to network, and I went down to the Capitol, went to CAP meetings, we went to Capitol. Back when they changed the LCDC licensure, and so I did a lot of things, right? I just got my hands on a lot of things. And that has kind of driven a lot of my career, where you just kind of look around one day and you're like, oh, I did all these things in a very short period of time, but I experienced a lot. So when she says network, like it's super, super important, the field is super big, but I'll tell you, as a hiring director, like it's very small. It's my assistant director of our program also. So somebody has to keep me balanced sometimes. Somebody has to keep me in line. But I started at Nexus. I've been there 3 separate times actually. So don't ever leave your job, right? In a bad way. Right? Because this community is small, and we always have somebody we can call and be like, hey, you know this person, right? And so just a little bit about me is that I was a tech at Nexus, and when I started my counseling career, I requested to do my internship at Parkland Race Crisis, their victim intervention program. From there, I went to Nexus as a counselor. I did outpatient counseling. I've also, on the side, because I'm a licensed clinical social worker, I did birth mom counseling. So I did adoption for a little while, kind of on the side of the contracts that I carried. I did home studies for international adoption, things like that, all while I was also a counselor. I didn't stay at Nexus because I was part-time, and I needed hours towards my licensure, so I ended up, somebody called me that had been passed my resume, and I ended up a domestic violence therapist. for Salvation Army. So I was a domestic violence therapist for a couple of years, about a little under 3.5. And I got called back to Nexus and I took over their adult women program in 2020. So right in the middle of pandemic, here you go, right? Let's take over an inpatient rehab and go for it. And so, and that one, like she said, someone called me, they knew I was looking and I'd already been at Nexus. And so they got my resume from my previous boss who knew the work that I did. And so in doing that, let me tell you a little bit about Nexus. We're, a female, all female or a female identifying recovery center. We also take women and children. We take pregnant women. We have a detox program. We have recovery support services. So we have recovery coaches. We have medical providers on site. Parkland comes out, so they receive all the services. I brought folders with our information on it because we are really one of two in the state that take women and children. And so if you guys want one, we've got a whole bunch of them. They'll be there. They've got my card in them. But I run our largest program. So we have 72 beds in my program, but any given day we have 110 to 120 women on campus, which makes it really fun, right? And you put that many women in varying levels of recovery and things get wild. So it's a really, really important thing to me, important in the work that I've done. I've primarily worked with women. I also have private practice on the side. So we do all the things. I don't know how that happens, but we just do all the things, right? So I also do private practice, and in that I see a lot of trauma and alternative lifestyle. So that's just a little bit about me. This presentation was originally kind of created for trauma responsive care in kind of inpatient settings, right? Because when we need trauma-informed care, it goes beyond what I just said to Dusty. Was like, you kind of show up at a program and it's like, don't yell, they have trauma, right? And you're like, okay, what does that mean, right? And so I'm going to go over trauma-informed care, but at Nexus, we really talk about, and in the community, about trauma responsive care, right? It's what you're going to hear in trainings all over the place is like trauma-informed care, and it became a real buzzword when I first started counseling, that's what it was. It was just the word that everybody used but didn't understand, right? And so it became a buzzword everywhere I went, and they were talking about it but not doing it. And so it became kind of one of my missions to understand and to really put that into the work that I do and to teach other people how to do that and to change your mindset in working with clients who have trauma. Even in private practice, most of my clients have trauma, right? Or they have trauma responses. So they may not have PTSD, but I promise you they encountered something throughout their life that created those trauma responses that we see show up in life. They're just a little more functional than some of the clients I work with at Nexus, right? So we say trauma responsive care. So we'll start kind of with what is trauma-informed care, right? It helps us better support clients who have experienced events that are deeply distressing or overwhelming and overtake the individual's ability to cope. It helps us recognize and respond to the signs, the symptoms, and the risks, right? It involves understanding the prevalence of trauma and how it impacts clients' health and behavior, recognizing when a client's behavior is a result of their trauma, and responding to clients with best practices that prevent re-traumatization and offers non-judgmental support. In the environment that I work in every day, and that Lauren works in and that Erica works in, our women, I don't think any of them come in without trauma. They may not identify it all the time, but they've experienced it. And being out in the world, it's something that we encounter all the time. And so understanding how it impacts their behavior, because when they're standing in front of you screaming at you, it's generally not super personal, right? Even though I'm the one that pissed her off, it's not always, it's not personal, right? So in my environment as the director, they're all super afraid of me. Simply because I have that title, it's actually entertaining the things that they call me and say about me. So I was like, I did not know I was this scary until I started watching it. Did not know I was that cool. And yeah, so then they sit down and talk to me, and we have a conversation instead of being punitive, right? And they're like, oh, you're actually kind of nice. I'm like, yeah, that's a thing, right? So when we talk about trauma and what that looks like, I gave you guys a handout. It's up here. There was an ACEs study, right? And this is adverse childhood experiences. Anytime we talk about trauma, we're gonna probably talk about the ACEs study. This was a Kaiser study done in California. This is very, very well known. And it goes over all of the different things that you encountered, right, in childhood experiences that would, that are very common, right? And so you guys have a copy of that. And so when we talk about ACEs and we put in drug addiction, right, studies of people with drug addictions repeatedly find extraordinarily high percentages of childhood trauma. So most of the people that come through our rehab have experienced childhood trauma, and more than you would even imagine. So for each noted adversity, so for each noted thing on there, the risk of early initiation of substance abuse increases 2 to 4 times. Most of us have more than one on that checklist. I haven't made that in a long time, but I know I had a couple for sure, right? Subjects with 5 or more ACEs are 7 to 10 times more likely to become substance abusers. So 2/3 of IV drug users report abusive and traumatic childhood events, and individuals with 3 or more traumatic childhood experiences have higher rates, not just of alcohol and drug abuse, but depression, domestic violence, sexually transmitted diseases, and heart disease. So having some of these adverse childhood experiences really feeds into the things we do in our adulthood, which feeds into our trauma responses and the things that, how we behave, right? And even just one of them can increase our risk for substance use. So according to SAMHSA, 75% of women and men in substance abuse treatment report histories of abuse and trauma. From what I see, right, because this is substance abuse treatment, we are primarily state funded. We do take insurance, but we are primarily state funded. So those without resources, right? So this takes into account resources and everything else. Mostly, I'm going to tell you that what I see in my place is almost across the board. I very, very rarely see somebody who hasn't had a history of abuse and trauma. 97% of individuals in substance abuse treatment have PTSD. 97. We kind of tell our ladies that, like, if you didn't have it before you were using substances, you probably got it during, right? Because the things that they did and the things that they encountered and the people that they were around were not in their best place in life either. And so the things that they encountered were probably traumatic, right? And probably had a lasting effect on how the things that they do today. All right, so exposure to traumatic events, what does it create? What does it cause, right? Poor self-esteem, depression, self-destructive behaviors, difficulty trusting others, passivity leading to re-victimization, irritability and easily angered by others, difficulties with memory, anxiety, which may look like attention-seeking behaviors, angry outbursts, isolation, defensiveness, poor concentration, disordered eating, drained energy, intrusive memories and flashbacks, and difficulty following through with tasks. And then not knowing how to repair after relational conflict, right? So all of these things are, after we've experienced some sort of trauma, these are the things that it causes in our world and what we see in our clients every day. And so often we don't always piece those things together, right? We're like, wow, this client is really struggling to eat, or they're having really strange eating patterns and they just got off a substance, and we kind of attribute it to that. A lot of the anxiety, a lot of our angry outbursts, a lot of anxiety presents as irritability. The clients are like, I just screamed at 3 people. And I'm like, what is happening? Right? And we go back, and a lot of it just leads back to anxiety, but their anxiety is stemmed from all of their trauma that they've experienced in their lifetime. And so it really impacts all of our behaviors, and we have to kind of piece them together. So as you kind of work with in substance use and in that population, or with private clients, either way, because they have a lot of the same behaviors, they just look different. They just present differently, because my private practice clients are much more functional when I see them, right? We have to be able to piece all of that together. So this is something we talk about a lot in treatment facilities, because Our clients get triggered. Our friends get triggered. It's like a buzzword with teenagers right now. Everything triggers me, right? And I'm like, that's not, stop it. My 16-year-old, I'm like, you say that one more time. I'm gonna get you, man. And so I always like to tell people kind of how I talk about trauma with clients and about how I talk about what happens with our brain when it's triggered, right? So this pulls from the hand model of the brain, which was from the whole brain child, right? So the whole brain child. And so I do it with my clients, and I'm not going to use, I use very simplistic terms, right? I'm not going to use all of your specific brain terms, our amygdala, all of that, right? I just don't use it with clients. You can if you want to. I had a clinician who always did. I just found that they remembered it easier if I use very basic terms, right? So I always say, this is your brain, right? This is your alarm bell. This is your fight, flight, or freeze, right? In this fight, flight, or freeze, when you've experienced trauma, it's going to go off a lot. It's a little more sensitive, right? It's going to go off a little bit easier. And we've got our rational brain and our emotional brain, right? Top and bottom. When these are working correctly, just walking around day to day, everything functions. They talk to each other. They work together. We access both emotion and rational thought, and we're just kind of hanging out there, right? When our fight, flight, or freeze goes off, it's called flipping your lid, and your brain disconnects, okay? Goes offline completely. And you can no longer access that rational thought, right? So we need that. It's really, really important. And I always tell my clients that you need that, right? Because if you're driving down a 2-lane highway and like another car swerves into your lane, you need your alarm bell to go off, because otherwise you're going to be like, I wonder how fast that car's going. Should I go this way or this way? Where do I go? And they're going to hit you head on. You need your body to respond, right? You need that process, and we all have it. And that's what I want my triggered clients to understand. We all have this process. Yours may go off a little easier than somebody else's, and that's okay, right? But when we have flipped our lid and we can't access rational thought, right? They're in sheer emotion. And my clients, what this usually looks like, and I always tell them, like most of us have done this with like a partner, right? Spouse, something, where you are just losing your mind, right? And you are losing your mind, right? You have lost access to rational thought completely, right? So you can see it. The more you talk about it with your clients, the more they'll start to see it in other people and in themselves, because we encounter it all the time, right? And so what does this look like? The response doesn't match the present situation in affect, intensity of affect, or duration of affect, right? So they are, I mean, something happened, right? Their alarm bell went off, they flipped their lid, they're in sheer emotion, and they are standing there screaming their head off about something, and they're mostly making sense, but not really, right? And they are just losing their mind. And you're like, all right. Half the time at my work, it's like, and that was just whatever it was, right? But it's way bigger than it needed to be. It's like the smallest thing, and we lost it, right? So we are in sheer emotion. They are shouting. They repeat the same thing over and over and over again, right? They'll have clinging behaviors. They'll forget, right? A little longer term, sometimes they will self-harm. Oh, I didn't change this. Ours says we don't use AMA anymore, but they want to leave treatment, right? They'll have avoidance behaviors. They will restrict eating, and they will lie, right? But what this looks like is you're just standing there, right? And they can't hear you. If we can't access rational thought, we're not going to have a rational conversation. So when someone is standing there just losing their mind in a session, happens in sessions all the time, you'll see it, right? Their body will change, but they are just repetitive, and they are not making sense, and they are in sheer emotion. And this happens a lot more with trauma clients than anybody else, just because their alarm bell goes off a lot easier. And so they're going to go into fight or flight really, really quickly. Now, there's really not a lot that reconnects us quickly. It's time. So with my clients, I'm like, let's get them away from everybody else. And I have sat in a room while this girl paces back and forth, and she's screaming at me, and she's just pacing, and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, all right. And I'm just letting her go for a minute, right? And you will watch them reconnect. Right? And as you watch them reconnect, suddenly they'll start making sense again. And then they'll start making sense enough that they realize they overreacted, and then they start to have a little bit of shame. Because they're like, oh, I'm saying this in front of all those people, oh, I shouldn't have done that, right? And with our spouse, when we do it just a little smaller, we're like, oh. You ever screamed at somebody and been like, oh, shouldn't have done that. Probably wasn't the most rational thing I did today. Yeah, we probably lost access. We went offline, right? And so it's important that our clients know this and that we know it and we learn to recognize it and see it. Because now I'm like, whoo, right? And I'm going to tell you the number of times that my boss knocks on my,
Sorry, just a question about the last bullet point, mine one. How often does that kind of come up in session, if you have to say? Obviously, it's better to view it as what, like I said, more of a way of getting deep set, when the client may not be super familiar with how to set up appropriately. But how often is that like a problem with that?
clients lie all the time.
Very well.
I mean, sometimes they're not super aware of it, but a lot of times they lie all the time, right? One of the things about being a clinician is that they don't want you to judge them, right? So no matter how much they trust you, like they lie a lot. It is helpful really to understand that, one, I don't let my team use the word manipulation. That's like my pet peeve. I'm going to put it here because it's commonly known. Our clients just aren't really trying to manipulate us. They're just trying to get their needs met, right? And so it's really helpful to see it that way, because you're going to be annoyed when people lie to you, right? And so if you can view things as a trauma response, it's easier to view them with empathy instead of anger, right? And so if we can view the behaviors of our clients as trauma responses, it's a lot easier to feel empathetic instead of just angry, because they are going to get you. They are going to pull your stuff up. They are going to, and if you're annoyed, that is your stuff, right? If you are annoyed with the client, that's your stuff. You need to figure that out, right? So when a client angers me, I'm like, whoa, this client triggers me, y'all. Whoa, whoa, right? The only way we deal with that as a clinician is to recognize it, talk about it, consult about it, and work through it, right? Figure out what it is in us that's triggering us. But and I did, man, and so Erica's laughing because she was a clinician for me. And so my clinicians come and sit in my office, and primarily what I do is I deal with clients, but I deal with our clinicians. I have anywhere from 17 to 19 clinicians underneath me, right? I know. I don't just run our adult women program, I also run our mental health, and I manage our detox. So they come in my office and they're pissed, and they're like, this client is driving me crazy. And I'm like, why is she triggering me? What's happening? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, what is happening? And so I ask them that all the time. But that kind of triggered is triggering your stuff. This kind of triggered is brain disconnect, right? They're very separate, right? And so we use that word all the time. But when our clients get triggered, their alarm bell goes off and they are offline. When my clinicians get triggered, their stuff's coming up, right? And they're annoyed with the client and they want to figure out what that is. But it is helpful for us to really view that in a way that most of them aren't intentionally manipulative, right? They are lying to get their needs met, right? But manipulation has a really negative kind of intent, and their intention isn't to usually be harmful to you, it's self-preservation, or to get a need met that they feel is unmet. In the substance use world, what that looks like is whatever this is emergent, and I want this, and I want it right now, right? Right now. And you're not going to give it to me, so I'm going to go figure out how to get that. And I'm going to tell you that working with women, as long as I have theirs, and substance use in general, not just women, it's just mine has been primarily female, they are smarter than me. And they're smarter than you, right? And not smarter than them, right? I tell them all the time, I do not think I'm smarter than you. I just have the specific set of skills to help you, but I'm not smarter than you. And I learned that a long time ago, because you're going to get over on me every single time, right? But they just want to get their needs met. So viewing lying in session and with your clients, especially when you work in substance use, is really important, because it's, one, often how they learn to survive, right? when we have experienced trauma, we learned alternative ways to survive and to get our needs met because they were not always being met. A lot of times in our world, the people who were supposed to keep us safe didn't. When you work in a residential facility for substance use, the people who were supposed to keep them safe didn't, especially when we're state funded, right? Because they don't have the resources and the family support. And when we have a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of that comes with we didn't get what we needed as a child. Right. So with these clients, when they're triggered, when they have flipped their lid, I pull them in, get them away from somebody. You can sit in my office and scream at me. My boss knocks on my door all the time because she just wants someone to know that someone's watching. And I'm like, what can I? My boss is like this big, by the way. She's scary as shit, but she's like this big, right? She's tiny. She's a tiny little thing. But she knocks on my door every time because she's in the office next to me and she can hear, and I just let them go, right? I'm not trying, at no point can they access rational thought. So if it literally, and I mean it, your brain goes offline. And there are brain scans to back this up. You can't access it. So if you can't access rational thought, stop trying to have a rational conversation with somebody screaming at you. It's not going to happen, right? They can't access it. It's offline, like completely. And so all of your clients who have experienced trauma need that time, right? And so again, that's part of the reason that I developed this is that what you see is that as someone's standing there screaming at you, right, what are you doing? And I'm like, if we understand where that comes from, one, I'm not mad that you're yelling at me. That's okay. I'm like, I'm probably the person you should yell at because I'm the one who can manage it the best. Maybe not the best, but I'm the one who can manage it. I've been trained to manage it. I train other people how to manage it, right? The clients will come back and be like, I'm really sorry for yelling at you, Miss Kira, because they're terrified of me. And I'm like, oh, it's fine. Like, we're good. You know, we've had a whole conversation afterwards. We're okay, right? I left it at the door. They expect, because they've experienced negative things their entire life, that I'm going to carry that around and treat them like crap because they yelled at me, right? So now I've deemed you that person. Half the times when my clients leave treatment, they're like, I'm so sorry for that one thing. And I'm like, I don't know what you did. I don't remember. Like we were done with it. Like we talked about it, I addressed it, but I have no idea what it was because I just moved through it, right? I don't hold on to it. I don't view you as that thing, right? But these trauma responses that they've had have been viewed as who they are for so long, right? And it's not. It's just a bad behavior. It's a negative behavior that we don't like and we're trying to change. And we're trying to teach them to do that. When we talk about flipping your lid with clients, they feel a little better because they understand why they're doing what they're doing. They need to understand their own behaviors because it makes them easier to tolerate. And we need to be able to catch them on the front end. So we're going to teach them how to catch them on the front end before we get to the point of flipping our lid. That's the goal, right? Because once you flip your lid, we're done. Once you flip your lid, we're going to have to wait until that reconnection happens. And then we're going to be like, what happened? And then we're going to back it up and we're going to go through all the processes to be like, how did we get here? Right? Because there were 30 things that got us to that jumping off the ledge point. And we needed to intervene long before then. Once we hit that point, and once we are at this point, intervention is unnecessary. You can try and do some grounding sometimes if they can hear you enough to do that, right? If I can get them away and walk, this has so much energy to it, getting them to walk, right? We'll calm it down because they're walking and I'm just letting go. You have to be in an environment you can do that. I have an environment where they're outside and I can just let them go, right? Not everyone's going to come running because they're with me. And other clients are like, oh, I'm good. Cheers there. Nope, not doing it. And so it's, you know, it's an interesting kind of thing to watch with them. And you see it, right? You'll see it kind of happen and you see them reconnect and you'll hear that rational thought come back. And so you just listen to what they're saying. And so in the moment, you're like, all right, okay, I hear that. That's frustrating. You're just validating, right? You're just listening. You're letting them go. They want to know that you're listening. So sometimes they will expect a response, but they are not going to hear it. I promise you that. All right, so intervention. I always like to talk about things we can do, right? So clients with trauma have nervous systems that are stuck in hypervigilance, right? That means that they're always scanning their environments and their relationships for danger. As a result, clients become super sensitive to facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice, right? These features of your communication may often be louder than the actual words that you use. things that can go a long way in allowing clients to feel connected and safe in their communication with you is to soften your gaze, lower your voice, right? Use a calm and gentle voice, and keep your body posture open. One of the things I didn't tell you I used to do a lot of street outreach. We used to have a harm reduction model. So I kind of laughed when he said that, because our motto was like, I used to do a lot of street outreach down on Harry Hines with trafficking. I've worked in a lot of trafficking, things like that. I really have done all the things. But the first thing they teach you is how you stand, right? Because when you're on the street, that matters. One, you've got pimps watching you from far away, because we did a lot of work. You haven't lived until you have run down here and have condoms in your hands and worked with sex workers. Like, that is interesting. But how you stand matters, right? And so I never square up with a client, right? Especially if we're standing. I tend to have my hands behind my back because it's a lot less threatening for them, right? One, I already know they're fearful of me, right? Because a lot of times, even as a clinician, you have more than they do in their mind, right? Reality is, I'm the power over them, right? Do anything. Then not, they're adults. I cannot make them do anything I don't want to do. I can ask them to, I can address it, but I can't make them do it. But the way we stand matters, and they are hyper aware of it. They may not speak it, but as you square up with someone, they feel more threatened. So as you step towards them, they're going to step back, right? First time I ever really noticed this happen is that we were talking to a sex worker on the street. There was a group of us, we always went out in teams, right? And we're all standing around her, and we're like excited, and we're talking, and she's animated, and we're having a good time with this particular one, because sometimes it did not go like that. And we're all like, and I take a look, and the other girl looks at me, and she's like, step back, right? Because we're all kind of stepping, and she's steadily kind of stepping back, just without knowing, and we're just having conversation, but she's kind of taking steps back, right? Because she's feeling that there's a bunch of us, and we're kind of encircling her, and so two of us break off, because we notice, right? But she's uncomfortable. Your clients notice all of your body language, and when they've experienced trauma, they didn't feel safe at some point, and so they are paying attention and constantly scanning their surroundings, constantly scanning their relationship, right? Very often, I don't remember if you were there or not, I was with a client, and I was sitting in a situation where I was kind of above her, and I look at her and I go, I'm really uncomfortable. Can I sit near you? Because I was above her, right? And so it makes me over her. And I didn't like the way we were sitting because it put us at a power differential. And I could feel it because I was paying attention to her body language. So I knew she could feel it, and she kind of looked at me, she's like, yeah, it's fine. Right? But I sit down. They can stand, which is why I sat there while this girl's breathing and running back and forth. I don't need to be up and be empowered. The more I sit down, I set the tone of the room, right? So when our clients have experienced high trauma, they are paying attention to your facial expressions, right? They can read all of them, and they will read you, and they will ask you outright, what was that? It was what? Right? You didn't even know you did it. And really your tone of voice. They kind of laugh at me because as a human, I am loud, and I'm like all over the place, and I like to have fun, and I joke around or whatever. And then you get me in a therapeutic environment, and I'm like really calm, and that's not me as a human. Like, I'm ADD myself, so I'm like, I bounce around, right? I'm never gonna pass down. But once you set me in a therapeutic environment or with a client, or sometimes my text will ask me like a question and I just slip right into it, and I'm like, oh, let me tell you about that, and the whole voice and tone changes, right? Because at some point I created this like therapy, you just get in that mode, I suppose. It just happens. And you realize that when you lower your tone, you're gonna affect the tone of the room and the person in front of you. And so it's super, super important that we pay attention to that, right? Because as we are dealing with irate clients or clients who have experienced high trauma, especially, again, in inpatient environments where there's a lot of conflict, right? Our initial reaction is to be like, okay, I gotta protect myself. Nope. Be a lot safer if you're the least threatening thing in the room, right? And I may have the most power over the situation if I can do those things. So controlling yourself and paying attention to that is a really important intervention that we carry as clinicians and as any staff member in dealing with people who have experienced trauma, whether it's in that environment or whether it's one-on-one. We can set that tone, right? We don't, as long as we don't feed into theirs, it's one of the most important things we can do, right? Any questions about that? And I'm sure they talk about it, but do y'all make them record sessions? Ever?
In grad school.
In grad school? It's really interesting to record sessions. You learn a lot about yourself really quickly. It's really awkward, but you learn a lot about yourself, because if you watch your clients, you'll notice how the effect you have on them based on when you watch yourself and the things you don't realize that you do. All right, so validation. Validation can go a long way. Letting a client know that their perspective is heard, even if you don't agree, right? A client may find something very important that you do not think is important at all, right? But be mindful, it may hook into their trauma in a way that you don't understand, right? So instead of saying no, we find a way to meet their needs, or try to, with still exercising boundaries, right? I can't do this, but we can do this, right? So instead of just being like, nope, not doing that, right? Give them alternative resolutions, find other ways to try and meet their needs, try and figure out what the need is, and help them meet it, because a lot of the behaviors go away, right?
So somewhere I promise, but,
Okay.
there's this concept in like improv or, kind of stage and that kind of stuff, never say no, yes, and. Yes, and is always better. But this also kind of obviously a more therapeutic way of life.
Yeah, I mean, we want to say yes, but in teaching people to say yes, you have to teach them that, like, you're actually saying no, you're just telling them what you can do, right? They may not like what you can do, but you're going to have to give them, like, okay, these are your options, right? Communicating that you take their needs seriously. People just want to be heard. I cannot stress that enough in the therapeutic environment and in the things that we do as counselors and working in treatment facilities. They just want to be heard, right? And it's funny because as a director, sometimes there are times that I have to be like, I do not have time to deal with this. I got 15 minutes and I get through this, right? And I want to hear you, but let me speak first, right? Because what I'm going to say is probably going to change what you're going to say. But I mean, in a general environment, you can't do that. We're going to have to let them be heard, because one, they're very often triggered. Your high trauma clients can't hear you anyway, so you're gonna have to wait. You're gonna have to get them to that point. So communicating that you take their needs seriously, validating that experience, right? Saying, wow, that must be really difficult. Or I hear that you're really frustrated. I hear that you feel like that was a really frustrating experience for you, right? It may not have been for me, and I may know exactly why the client's having an issue, right? The client I spoke to today was really frustrated that we couldn't see her when she wanted to be seen. I'm like, and no, I was very direct with her, but it's very limited on time, but trying to sit with her, and she had just had something really traumatic happen. All of these things are leading up to this point, and she is just losing it. She wrote me a whole note. It is completely doesn't make sense, right? Like, you can see it in her writing that she's triggered. I can read it because it's not, I don't even know what she's asking me for. I just know she's pissed off. And she just needed to be heard and had some things explained to her. And that's it, right? Now, for that one, she wrote me the note and she was completely triggered. By the time I got to her the next day, that reconnection has already happened. And she was like, yeah, I was just kind of a mess. And I'm like, well, you can see that, right? I didn't say that, but you can see it in the way that she wrote. But I'm like, okay, so what do you need help with, right? And she didn't like all the answers I had, but she needed to be heard and validated that, yeah, I imagine that when you are really triggered and you need somebody in that moment and you want your counselor, that's probably not going to happen, right? She has other clients. I don't know that you're going to find her. She's not here 24 hours a day. So what do we do instead? What are your alternatives in a facility? I've got all this other staff. Who else is safe for you, right? How can I help you make this experience a better experience? And who do I need to talk to make sure that you have safe people that you know about, right? But just validating that that's frustrating, right? When I want to be heard and when I need her, she's not available. Because what they didn't hear is, yeah, she's all these other clients and you're not the only one here, right? But we can't say that. So finding a way to just validate them. We can communicate that we disagree about something without that disagreement putting a strain on the relationship. I teach my clinicians sometimes how to have difficult conversations. We don't have to agree with everything, right? We can validate an experience and then voice a concern. The way that we ask questions sometimes helps them understand that we don't agree with their philosophy, trying to open that door. We don't just want to come out and say it, but we want to open the door for them to kind of find things in a different way, right? Not agreeing doesn't always have to strain the therapeutic relationship. We do not have to agree with everything they say. And then letting them know that their voice matters, right? They want to be heard. The most common thing I hear in my facility is that, like, why am I going to complain about it? Nothing happens. And I'm like, well, you know, they need that process explained to them why it matters, right? Because again, if they haven't had safety and nothing happened in their past, why would that be different now? I always joke that my clients are afraid of me. They've never had a good experience with authority. Most of us haven't, right? Because most of us have people or bosses in our life who are crappy because they got into an authority role for the wrong reasons, or they like power, or our clients have dealt with the police, who that's a whole other world that I won't get into because I could stand on that soapbox all day. Very necessary, I love them. Very also hard to deal with sometimes for our clients, right? But I always joke about that because why would they expect me to be any different? Why do they expect me to be on their side? Their principal wasn't on their side, right? Their boss wasn't on their side. Why do they expect me to be on their side? Right? As the director, right? Because I'm not their clinician. So understanding their expectations and what they've encountered helps you understand why they treat you that way. I mean, I had a girl sit in my office and I'm literally asking her, how can I help you? Right? And this girl she is moving and shaking the entire time. And I'm like, what is happening? Right? And she's like, you're really anxious, what's going on? Right? And I'm addressing something, but I'm like, how do I help you get there? How do I help you succeed? Because I don't want you to leave my office and still have this issue, right? You're not doing the things that I need you to do, but that's not the point. How do I help you get to this point, right? If you're not successfully doing something, what do you need? Well, they don't know, but we're going to help them find it and kind of work through all of that. But it always, she's moving, y'all, like she was like, and I'm like, girl, like you have to understand, like, I'm like, girl, you definitely one of those clients, like, if you saw me on the street, you wouldn't think twice about being afraid of me. She's like, no. I'm like, okay. So she's understanding her experiences and the trauma that created in her as to why she's handling me that way, right? So as we see things in our clients, understanding that their experiences in the past really impact how they treat us, right? And that's where trauma-informed care comes in. It's more about understanding their history and why they do the things that we do. Because if we can help them resolve that, a lot of the behaviors go away, right? When we try to just go at something and tell them no and get them to stop it, right? And punitive measures will work, right? The old substance use used a lot of kind of pulling stuff up by your bootstraps, a lot of punitive things, right? And so you used to go into treatment centers and there was a lot of like, you're going to write a paper because you didn't make it to group on time, or you're going to be punished, right? And when working with trauma clients, we know that while that gets them to comply, you didn't resolve anything for them, right? You didn't address any of that trauma, you added to it. Because motivating through fear isn't the goal, right? And that's the hardest thing in trauma responsive care that we work with, is that we want them to do what we want them to do. And so using punitive measures is not trauma responsive and it's not trauma informed, right? Because when we are punitive, we're adding to the victimization. Some of the things that they've been through is all we're doing is punishing instead of helping them understand, right? And that's also why I tell them why their brain works that way, right? Because then they're like, oh, and I'm like, I don't think you want to do that. That's not who you are. So how do we stop that, right? How do we address those things and make them better? So addressing a client who experiences a painful emotion can be tricky. Be careful not to unintentionally invalidate their experience, right? I think programs talk about all the time. I think one of the most common things is about tissues. Everybody talks about that in school, right? You don't have to hand a client tissues. because we're gonna stop them from crying. When they think you're uncomfortable, they're going to stop. So being very careful not to tell them that you know what that feels like, right? And in validation, we're like, I can understand why that would be upsetting for you, right? Or that makes sense to me. I say that to my clients all the time. It would make sense to me that if you had this, your response was this, right? Those two things make sense. And I try and make them make sense for them, that if this, then this, right? Now, I'm over here like, all right, we gotta stop that, right? That's the goal of what we're doing, is trying to find that connection and stop it, right? But we want to be really, really careful not to invalidate them, because when they're having really high emotions, when they're in that space that they're in sheer emotion, or they're close to that point, they need validation. And they're going to, if you in any way look like you don't believe them, they're going to shut down immediately. And they're going to tell you that you invalidated their experience, right? So just being very careful with the words that you use, right? And that we're not trying to get them to stop crying. We're encouraging, like, it's okay to cry. Crying is healthy. This is a safe place to do that, right? Clients can feel affirmed and empowered when they are listened to intently, taken seriously, and have concerns understood and reflected with specific. I can't say that word. I don't even know why I need to take it out. Some examples of basic reflection statements would be, it doesn't seem fair to you, right? It seems like that was too much for you and you needed a break. So when clients, like for us, leave group or they leave session, for me, they're usually yelling at me and they walk out, right? And I'm like, okay, it feels like this is too much. Why don't you take a break and we're going to reconvene, right? Because I think that this is a lot. You're disappointed that that didn't go the way you thought it would. And it seems like it really hurt when she said that to you, right? Because they come in my office all the time. She ain't gonna talk to me like that. And they're going off on me. And I'm like, well, she did. But it seems like that really hurt, right? And so what did that hurt? Why are we upset for that, right? And what happened? And so they feel really empowered when we understand them. And not just by saying, I understand, right? It's by pointing out what we've noticed, that it was hurtful, and what we're seeing, right? Seems like that wasn't fair. Seems like that really hurt. So clients who struggle with intense feelings of shame often reveal this in their behaviors by acting arrogantly and self-righteously towards others. We see that so much, right? They're intimidating, controlling, or inducing shame in others. They're perfectionists, right? They become preoccupied with appearance or social approval. They become judgmental and critical of others. Shame-prone individuals explore in rage seconds after perceiving someone disrespecting them or demeaning them. This is actually an expression of desperation to disprove that they are shame-worthy and to try and feel a sense of control and power instead of helpless and terrified. Our clients that have experienced a lot of trauma throughout their life, and one of my most in private practice things that I encounter is that it was somebody in their life that told them negative things. They don't identify as trauma because it wasn't one big event. There's a lot of small events throughout their entire life that gave them this really negative message, and then we have this trauma response, right? And so then we struggle with shame, and we take that out on others, right? And so, I mean, that does look like becoming very critical of the people around you, right? And often that big expression that we're going to see in a client of trying to show you that we don't feel shame or that we're not, is that need to control and feel that sense of control for a minute, because they felt so out of control most of their life, right? They didn't have control of the things that happened to them. They didn't have control of anything around them as children. And so in that need to control that, they're going to show you that they are not those things, right? My clients are in my office yelling at me. They're trying to convince me that they're not bad, right? They are not bad. And I don't think they're bad. Couldn't do the work that I do if I thought they were bad people, right? Because they've done some stuff. But their bad behaviors didn't make them a bad person, and they need to know that. They are carrying around more shame than we will ever be able to give them. But we have to identify what that actually looks like, because most of the time they don't just carry it around on their sleeve as shame. A lot of times it looks like being critical, trying to shame other people, right? It's that good person complex of, well, I didn't do this. And they just want to convince me that they're not bad, right? And I'm like, I'm the one who thinks the most of you. I love my screamers. Like, those are my favorite clients. I have really difficult clients who are like screamers. Like, those are my favorite. I love them. So yeah, so all of our clients, y'all, as we get into trauma and as you get into trauma-informed care, in the care that we give the people around us, the most important thing we can do is just try to be present, try to be genuine, right? And try to validate their experience. Because working with them, it presents differently, but what you're going to find is themes all the time. You're going to find the themes in your clients all the time. They can come from all different walks of life. I find it in substance use. I find it in mental health. I find it across the board because I work separately sometimes in those worlds, right? I mean, very often together, but I have this private practice that has nothing to do with substance use. And so in that, the themes are the same, right? And so the way that we treat our clients and realizing it as they're really acting out, as they are lying to you, as they are annoying you, and you're going to find these things out, in order to work through that, it helps you to understand, right? The more you know about trauma and the more that you learn why people do what they do, the easier they are to deal with day to day. The easier it is to manage difficult populations, right? The easier it is to manage all of the, I mean, when I tell people that I'm yelled at every day, and I don't go home and cry every day, right? They're like, you're what? And I'm like, yeah, great, I love that. You're my favorite, right? They just have the most pain. Once they're standing there screaming at me, and the most difficult clients have some of the most intense pain, and they haven't learned to deal with it. And so I take them in my office, and I'm like, let's talk, right? Because ultimately, I'm going to have to tell you that I need something. By the time you get to me, I need something different, right? I need you to manage yourself. How do we do that? But I never do it in a way that is punitive. I never do it in a way that is harmful, or I certainly try not to, right? And I always do it in a way that is empathetic and trying to just understand how I can help and how to be with them, but why they're doing what they're doing. And they always laugh because they end up crying in my office a lot. So does my staff, but they end up crying in my office a lot because I can see your pain. And so when we look at our clients and we see their pain, right, we're seeing them and helping them deal with it because they don't know how. And as you work in substance use, they've been numbing all of that, right? So they have very little emotional regulation skills, and we've taken away everything from them that they were using. And so now they have all these things hanging out, and it's always interesting. Ask Lauren, she can tell you some stories, man. When you work with 70 women in one program, like I'm like, you do not believe things happen. Some days I'm like, all right, that happened. Hey, not what I thought I was doing today. When my boss calls me on a Saturday, I'm like, oh God, what was it? Because when there's only 120 women on campus and 72 of them are mine, we're generally the problem. Statistically speaking, when a problem happens, it's fine. So I'm like, oh, okay, that was interesting, right? But trying to understand that behavior is really at the basis of it. And like I said, when I went into this world, what bothered me the most is that we were like, don't yell, right? Which is important, right? We don't want to raise our voice, right? Because we're going to trigger their trauma. And we're going to, and we need to understand those things. That's where it stopped when it first came out for me. What I experienced when I went out in the world was that's kind of where it stopped. That's kind of where the teaching stopped. And it didn't get into validation, and it didn't get into the things that really mattered to them, because we have to get out of our own stuff, right? So, any questions for me? Okay. Yes.
And what's like a short-term facility, like for acute cases, and how long is the average?
So depends on what program you're in, right? Our detox program is 5 to 7 days, right? Because that's our most kind of acute care. Adult women is 28, unless you're court ordered, they pay for 60, they pay for 28. Our women and children is anywhere from 30 to 90. Because they have cooler funding than we do. When I worked there in 2012 to 2013 as a tech, the state only tell our clients that 28 days is we're gonna build a foundation. You got to go build the house, right? It's a step down system of detox residential outpatient, right? we're not gonna be able to deal with trauma in 28 days. Right, and so, be really careful, because they come in and they're like, I want to tell you all my trauma, and I'm like, hold on. We're not open that can of worms, right, and teaching clinicians to not open that can of worms all the time, because we only have 28 days. Teaching clients when they're triggered, teaching clients how to manage that, right? And so I would love to have more time with them. Research shows we need more time with them, but they can't pay for it yet. And one day we'll get there, but we're not there yet. The 28 days is how long they get to stay. And it's really an amazing transformation to watch, which is why I've always done the work that I do. It's really, really cool to watch, because they really start in this place where they're there on their worst day. And they're very often high as a kite. And they're there on their worst day, right? And day 3, 5, and 7 are hard. They want to leave. And so we actually put in some things that we're trying because they get so triggered, right? And they like access to rational thought, they want to leave treatment. So we try to keep them there long enough for that to reconnect, right? So we put in this process that like makes them go through all of these people, right? Because we're trying to keep them there, right? We don't give them their stuff right away, because as their brain reconnects, we can then have a rational conversation and get them back into a place where we can help them.
This is a little bit more like an evolutionary psychologist. So when we just look at like emotional theory or like evolutionary kind of explanations for emotions, and what I've kind of understood about like guilt versus shame is guilt is I've done something bad, which is kind of a corrective emotion, go do something about it, fix the problem, fix your relationship, what you have to do. Shame is kind of that. That's
Right.
You go and play.
Yeah.
Full body, everything about me is wrong.
Right.
If you had to say, or if this is kind of an out of field question, that's completely fine. From an evolutionary perspective, what kind of is the job of shame? Like we kind of understand that kind of side of it.
Do we what?
Do we kind of understand like the role of shame, kind of an evolutionary purpose?
I mean, so I used to do this whole training on when I do it with my clients sometimes on emotions, and that each emotion has a purpose. Each one of them does, right? And shame, whether depending on who you talk to, right? It does have a purpose, and it needs for us to change, right? All of our emotions teach us something, and it's figuring out what it is teaching you. But we have more negative emotions than positive ones when we look at them, and the number of basic emotions is going to vary again by who you ask. And so it really is going to teach us something, right? Trying to get clients to not carry shame is a long process, right? But we need it. All of our emotions are somatic, right? And we have labeled them. Kids feel them in their body. We as adults label them, and that's how we call them, right? And that is the difference between guilt and shame. I did something bad, I am bad, right? But we need that because we need to know when we are, right? And so if we don't have shame, we don't ever know that we're not acting okay, right? And so we have to have shame, because otherwise we would be walking around being not the greatest humans, right? And so people who don't really carry that emotion and don't feel guilt and shame are okay with how they treat people sometimes, right? We feel shame when we do something, and because we are bad, right? And for most humans, we're just not, right? But we did something that makes us feel that way, and I think the function of that is that we need to know so that we can shift, right? It teaches us to shift when we care that we did that. Does that answer your question? That makes sense? Okay. Any other questions? I can talk about trauma all day. I gotta teach about emotions all day too. Like, I love that stuff. I teach to my clients all day. And that's some of the most important work that we do, is just teaching them, right? Just connecting things, connecting the dots, and teaching our clients, and realizing that it's not personal, and that everything that we do with them matters.
I love hearing people that are working in the field and talk about how we don't change and grow clients anymore.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for some people who are going into the field now to believe that I was trying to tell clients to sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
You've got the answer.
Yeah.
And we really were trying to overwhelm me that I even accepted that as an option.
Yeah.
For how to treat a person. But
Well, they comply, right?
yeah,
We do with children.
real well.
That's the thing. It's like, if you look at what we do with children, previously, we did it with children, right? We can get them to comply by being punitive, And what we find now and what research shows is that you can get people to do things in other ways when you address the issue instead of motivate through fear. Because motivation through fear will get them to comply, but it didn't solve the issue. And what I tell them now is that, like, yeah, they're gonna go to group, right? I can make them go to group if I'm punitive and they're gonna go, and that's easier for me as a clinician, and that's easier for my staff because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. What it didn't do was resolve the reason they're not going to group, and so they're gonna step outside my facility and still have the same behavior, it just isn't gonna be a problem for group anymore because group's not there. It's still gonna be a problem for everything else in their life that's still showing up. And so she's 100% right, and that's what they did. I mean, they were still doing little pieces of it here and there when I showed up. I thought, I had some clinicians who had a really hard time with me in the beginning, because I was like, oh, you can't do that anymore. They were like, you sound like you can't do that, right? It was hard for me too, to live in the world of gray, right? And it was like, why do you care about this? But I had some really great teachers. I had a really great boss who changed my kind of direction as a clinician, and who made me sit in the gray area of just being okay with the behavior, trying to figure out what it was, and not being in control. And that's what it was for me, at least I think, is that, like, we wanted to control the person in front of us. And since it worked, we taught other people to do that. And in substance use, it was like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, sit down and shut up, and if you don't, you're in trouble, right? If they come to my office, like, I'm in the principal's office, and I'm like, okay, but I'm gonna help you. And they spend 30 minutes with me, and they're like, why does everyone say that about you? I'm like, because they haven't talked to me, probably. By the time you get to me, something's wrong. So, but yeah, I mean, it worked, right? And so we did it. So we don't do anything. Yeah, and I have some pretty good clinicians right now. So. Thanks for letting me come out. Appreciate it. Thank you.